Yesterday, a really big deal was made about a, quote, major Donald Trump economic policy speech. Now, I was shocked because basically every Trump speech is him reading polling numbers, insulting people, and using words like tremendous and terrific over and over again. But no, this was billed as a major economic policy speech. Sadly, it was just a disjointed combination of myths, lies, and bogus ideas. Let's go through a few of them, and I'll put a list up for those of you that are watching along with me. To begin with, Trump started with the normal labor force participation conspiracies, suggesting that the unemployment rate is actually somewhere between 21 and 42%. We've debunked this many, many times. He's including retired people in there. He's including junior and senior high school students who are not working. He's including parents who are choosing to stay at home. He's including people who opt to work part-time. That's a totally debunked conspiracy theory. Trump also claimed that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has proposed, quote, one of the biggest ever tax increases, which he said would target middle-class Americans. Actually, Hillary Clinton hasn't proposed that. I wish I had more to debunk that, but she just hasn't proposed that. Trump also promised that he would repeal, quote, disastrous Obamacare, saving another 2 million American jobs. Well, that's a common Obamacare myth. Obamacare is not going to be repealed. Obamacare has not killed jobs. We are in the middle of one of the biggest private sector job growth periods on record for decades. So that is absolutely bogus. Donald Trump also claimed that the U.S. has the highest business tax rate among the major industrialized nations of the world at 35%, which he would slash to no more than 15%. Well, it turns out that the effective tax rate is already 12.6%. It is true that on paper, the top marginal corporate tax rate for the biggest businesses is 35%. But you know, and I know, and Lewis knows, and most of the people listening know, very few businesses actually pay that. If you consider tax credits, other mechanisms, offshoring, et cetera, 12.6% is actually the effective tax rate paid. That's not high at all. Trump also saying Hillary would tax some small businesses by as much as nearly 50%. Nothing in her plan says that she would do that. Trump also saying he would eliminate the death tax, aka the estate tax. You might not know this, Lewis, but the estate tax already exempts estates up to $5 million. There are fewer than 1 in 500 Americans who even are subject to that tax because 499 out of 500 Americans don't have estates that are $5 million. Trump would increase that exemption to $10.9 million. Real fighter for the middle class, huh? And lastly, he would put a moratorium on all new government regulations. I mean, that's just ridiculous, Lewis. If there are regulations that are needed, regulations are needed. Saying you're just going to not do any regulation is bogus. Absolutely nothing here coherent or based in fact.
The funniest one is moratorium on government regulations.
Right.
How
does that mean?
Yeah. I mean, what all of a sudden, when drones are flying through the air, no regulations, even though we have this new thing happening. We'll just let the chaos ensue.
Yeah, absolutely no changes at all. The government will not get involved in anything, period. Now, if you knew about Trump's so-called economic team, you probably wouldn't be surprised that it's essentially gibberish that came out of this, quote, major economic speech. Trump's so-called economic advisors are basically a microcosm of his campaign. His 13-person economic advisory team is all male and has very few economists. So as usual, it's yet another boys' club with no experts on the subject matter, representative of the broader problems in Trump's campaign.
And chances are they are incompetent, because that also seems to be a theme throughout his with his campaign staff.
Everything is opposite with Donald Trump. One of his big sales pitches about himself is, I'm going to put the best people around me. When I don't know, I will put the best people around me. And then he comes up with spokespeople Healy Baumgardner and Katrina Pearson, who say they don't actually speak on behalf of Donald Trump. Well, you've been hired as a spokesperson, so I thought you did, and can't put together a coherent argument on any national news outlet. So yeah, the entire I'll put the best people around me thing, not really making sense. I've talked about how people of all ages, but particularly millennials, are owning cars less and participating more in the sharing economy. And one of the more popular options is Zipcar, which gets you a car when you want it, when you need it. They offer all sorts of cars, SUVs, hybrids, whatever you need. It includes insurance and it includes gas. You just pay for the time that you actually use the car. And you can reserve the car online from your smartphone over the phone. Then you unlock it with your Zip card. Each car share member reduces their personal CO2 emissions by between 1,100 and 1,600 pounds per year. For our audience, Zipcar is offering $25 of free driving credit if you sign up at joinzipcar.com/David. Support our show, reduce your carbon emissions and your spending on cars. Sign up at joinzipcar.com/David.